Hello, guys, and welcome to the second lesson of the coskian language, Kosktange. Now on this lesson, I will talk about some things about pronunciation. Pronunciation that I didn't say on the last lesson, and we'll talk about personal pronouns and and how verbs work in a very superficial manner. So we'll start with the pronunciation stuff. So um, see if I can find this. Um there was I forgot to add one letter, which is the e with an umlaut with the two dots, which it's called e mit umlaut or e mit ponten. So either e with umlaut or e with dots. And this is the schwa sound. This sound the letter and the sound can only occur at the end of a word. And if a word ends with this letter and this sound, and you add a suffix, you add something to it, it changes to to an e. So instead of you say when you have the suffix. So for example, the word for thing is tinga, tinga. So the plural is not tingan, it's tingen, because cannot occur in the middle of a word. It can occur at the end. Okay. Now this letter is very important because adding this letter to a word can mean a lot of things. Okay, but we'll get to it. Okay, so other stuff. I can find it in the display, but on the editing side, I can show you. There's a phonology tab, and here I'll show you some things I have noted. Here in phonological rules, you can see some of the phonological rules I have pointed down. Not all of them, or not. I haven't thought of all of them for now, but the main ones is that here I listed the stops, the voice stops, but the g, that the voice word finally. But I mean, all voiceless sounds, the voice word finally in Koskian. Mainly the plosives, the stops, which is why I put those here and not other sounds. But yeah, like R, ra, or la don't the voice. They can, but they don't have to. But here you have to, or you technically don't have to, but like because there's not a phonemic distinction between like say saying word and word, which means word. So in English you have to say it's not the same word as word. Word is nothing, but it's different from word, which is what I'm saying. But in Koskian it's the same word as word, because there's not a difference word finally between voiceless and voiced. It defaults to voiceless. So yeah, word it's written with a D, but you say word. So even in clusters, okay, this works. It doesn't matter. Clusters doesn't matter. Now, of course, in German, for example, you would write the word Wort with a T. So yeah, that's in German this kind of happens, but it's also written. But here in Koskian, you write it with a D, but you say Wort. So you write it like in English, but you say it like in German, so to speak. Now, of course, like in English, the NJ turns to velar nasal at the end of a word. Only at the end of a word. Because if it's not at the end of a word, you say nga. So remember earlier I said the word tinga, tinga. I didn't say tinga, tinga. I say tinga. Okay? So of course in English, because the NJ is word final, you say thing, thing, not thing. Spanish speakers or other other foreign accents, so to speak, would say thing. But yeah, it's theoretically it's thing. So here, well, you would if the word would have been thing. So you would say thing, but that's not a word, at least for now. So it's tinga. So we have ga. Okay. With this out of the way, we can. Oh yeah, I also want to say. So another thing I forgot. So in coskian, vowels and consonants can be either short or long. Well, for vowels, for consonants, you could say they're simple or geminated. Well, the nomenclature not important. You have to get the concept, not the name of the concept. So you can have, for example, there's a minimum pair right now, which is very good for examples. Okay, so the whole E written with J. So I can say T. That's a word in coskian. It's the oblique form of the word tu, which means you. So it means you, but like the object form. So I see you. Ik sa tu. Sa ti. Okay, ik sa ti, not tu. Yeah, because that would be like saying you see I. You don't say this in English. Well, it works like in English in this case. Or like in Spanish, you can't say tú ves yo. That doesn't make sense because yo is subject, and in English I is subject, not object. So in Koskian it's the same. You have so for first person you have, well, we'll view this for all the persons and all the forms, but for now, so first person you have ek, me, and me, the oblique form. And for second person you have tu and ti for oblique. So ti, this is the important word here, because it contrasts with t, t. Now you notice the e is longer here. It's not the same word. Okay, this is like Latin short and long vowels. Well, German, Dutch also have short, long vowels, but it's not that noticeable because you in Dutch a bit, but you don't write necessarily the vowel being long. In Koskian you do. Okay, so for example, let's get to the dictionary. And wait, let me change to the here. Dictionary. Okay, so for example, the word meaning flower. Okay, you can see the first syllable has two O's written. This means the O is long. So if I say the word, maybe you can hear the difference. It's blostom, blostom, not blossom, not blostom. It's blostom. The first O is long, the second is short. Okay. Second word, bok, short. And also consonants. For example, this is the word for how. Hyo, hyo, not hyo. Hyo, hyo needs to be long. Here, we is v, long again. So T, like I said, it contrasts, it's a middle pair. T means it's the plural article, the plural definite article in the affirmative, because there's a negative article. Well, we'll get to that. So T is a definite, affirmative, definite article. Okay. Okay, now that we have gotten through this, you can technically pick up a word in coskian without the technically, because, well, if you remember, you could pick up a word in coskian and you should be able to read it if you remember everything I talked about. Okay? Well, the same way vowels can belong, consonants can also belong, geminated, that's the name, doesn't matter. So here, for example, the word for can, it's kannen, not kannen, kannen, kannen. The N is long, okay? Or the word for cat is kot, kot. Okay, so it can happen word finally. Okay, the word for voice, for example, is stem, stem. The M is long, stem, stem. Okay, so yeah, you could pick up any word and you can read it. Okay, I know the orthography is confusing for German speakers and Dutch speakers, because if you would have something like this, the double N means the A is short. But here, no. If the A, you want the A to be short, to be long, you write two A's. If you want the A to be short, you write only one. The two N's mean that the N is long. Kannen, kot, hebben, hebben. Now I think in Dutch, this is how you write to have, but it's not hebben, hebben. Something that would be in Dutch. You say hebben, hebben. The B is long, it's geminated. Okay. Now we can get to some grammar. So personal pronouns. Okay, these are the personal pronouns. They have a nominative form, subject form, oblique, like I said, and the possessive. So like my stuff, my house, your house. Okay. So first person I, it's ek. Ek. This would remind you of Dutch ik, maybe. The oblique is me, and the possessive is mij. For you, it's tú. So like in Spanish, tú. Also would remind you of German du. Okay, that old Koskian would have been du. Okay, you can. I should. In most of the dictionary entries, there is an etymology, and most of them are from Old Koskian. Okay, we have some words from English / French and Old Norse, but mostly Old Koskian, of course. Okay, so he, it's Han, Norse. Oblique him, possessive his. So like in English. She is her, oblique her, too, and her, possessive. Now the word her means she, but can also mean woman as a noun. So the her, the woman. Okay. It, it as well, and it's. For we, it's we, os. Remember the S has to belong. Okay, it's not os, it's os. And or. For, remember the O is long. Or. You plural, of course, we differentiate you singular from you plural. Okay, English is the weird one out here. Yeah. Again, Dutch speakers might be confused because this means you singular in Dutch. Okay. Yeah, oblique yem, as if yer, and they, it's they. Who would have guessed? Them for oblique and ter for possessive. Okay. With this and with verbs, we can get making some phrases. Okay. So here you see that verbs have 6 forms: infinitive. You should know what the infinitive is. Present tense, past tense, past participle, imperative, and here it says still a name. Now it has a name, but I forgot to change this. But yeah, it's not too important. Okay, coskian verbs don't inflect for person. Okay, so if you want to say I do, so maybe like English, except the third person you also don't inflect it. Say so. So it'd be like saying I say, you say, he say, we say, you say, they say. Okay. Okay. Now with this, we can get to okay. So infinitive. The infinitives always end in n. So again, Dutch, German. I'm gonna be comparing with Dutch and German all the time. Okay. I'm sorry. I know there are other Germanic languages. Well, English as well. I'll also be compared with English. I know there are other Germanic languages, but I think those are the main ones that people know and can make the connection. Okay, and it's not that much related to the Norse, to the northern Germanic languages. So I don't think it's important to make the connection there. So and it's West Germanic. Okay, Koskin is a West Germanic language. So this is why I compare with English, Dutch, and German. So yeah, Koskin infinitives always end in n. The notable exception is gan. And we have two verbs, which are danen and sanen, which, yeah, they end in n. But the first n, it's not part of the stem technically. Yeah, it's not part of the stem because, as you'll see, the present is literally the stem. So, but the present of this is sa and da. So, yeah, the n is not part of the root. Technically, the infinitive ending is nen here, but yeah, doesn't matter. Okay. Well, I put some uses of the infinitive after modal verbs, kannen, mossen, or vellen. Also after skollen and wurden. These technically modal verbs as well, but I call them fossil verbs because they don't have a meaning. Well, they do a bit, but it's grammatical. Okay, so skollen is used for making the future. In the present, at least, if you use skol in the present, skollen. So like English shall. Okay, this is related with English shall. I shall do. Ek skol dannen. And wurden for conditionals or other stuff. Okay, and also with liken, like. Okay, now we get to the present. So like I said, you remove the n, which is the stem. And so like I said, sanen and danen, the n is on the stem. So it's sa, da. And we have three irregular verbs. Veren, the copula, of course it's irregular. Hebben, there's a common verb. Of course it's irregular, in English it is as well. And gan. Well, gan, I put gan here, not necessarily because it's irregular, but because since the ending is irregular, it would be a bit unpredictable knowing the ending, because there's no n to remove. You could say that, okay, you're removing an, technically. Well, that doesn't matter. The thing is knowing the thing, okay? So, yeah, the present of veren is er. Yeah, Nordic. This is Nordic, I know. Yeah, but English R is also Nordic, okay? So that was my main thing for making the copula Nordic, okay? From Old Norse. The present of hebben is half, and the present of gan is ga. Okay, with this you could start making sentences. Of course, since verbs don't inflect for person, so with veren, you say ek er to han her, it vi je they Very simple. Okay. For the past, also the same, except you have to use the past form, which can be a bit tricky. Okay. We're talking Germanic past. Okay. This is a bit tricky. Okay. But well, we'll get into that later. So, well, now morphology. Okay. I wasn't planning on doing this, but I think it's not that hard. So, coskian nouns can be singular or plural, and they can be either masculine or feminine. Okay, so etymologically, this is like Latin into Romance languages. So the neuter and the masculine merge together into masculine, and so we have only masculine and feminine. Okay, not very Germanic, because Germanic, if anything, merges masculine and feminine together into common neuter in Dutch and Danish, Swedish, Norwegian, and maintains masculine and feminine neuter in German, Icelandic, Faroese. Faroese, I think, I don't know Faroese, but I think, like Icelandic, maintains masculine and feminine neuter, and English lost them entirely. So here we have masculine and feminine. The gender basically only affects the article, either affirmative or negative, and the definite one, the indefinite n, doesn't deflect for gender. You say en book and en tighter, doesn't matter. Okay, so book masculine, tighter feminine. So for plural, mostly it's n. Others can add an they can change the vowel, so ablaut. Or you can do the ablaut and the at the same time. So Wort, which is an example I have used, you say Wort, but the problem is not worden. No, it's verde. So you change the O to an E, and you add the Others will only have the ending. Blåstom technically does this. It removes the last O, but technically it's only because you could change from blåstom to blåstma. Yeah, you remove the O, but the O was there because there wasn't anything etymologically, if you know what I mean. So the word would be like blåstom. So it added the O, blåstom. So that's why it's blåstoma, the plural. And mostly you have N, boken. And for the only ablaut, for example, you have tighter, means daughter. The plural is toiter, so just a vowel change. Or sun, meaning son. The plural is suna, sona. Sorry. So vowel change and okay. In the dictionary entry of any noun, the plural will be listed. Okay, because yeah, mostly n, but also can be ablaut or ablaut plus okay, and well, so yeah, that's it. Yeah, that's the first, the second coskian lesson. Yeah, I hope you liked it. So yeah, you can technically look up some words and start making some sentences. So yeah, you can leave some sentences in the comments. Okay, I'll be glad if you did. Okay, so yeah, if you're interested in Koskian, I'll see you around, I guess. Bye.